Hello.
What's going on?
Just caught me taking off my really tatty house cardigan so that no one can see how tatty, mind you, my UCLA jumper. I always feel like such a fraud. I forget that I'm wearing the UCLA jumper, and then I come on this and I think people must go, "Woo, she went to UCLA." I did not go to UCLA, folks, just so that we're clear. Okay. Right.
Me
So,
neither. But hey ho.
what was the name of your tertiary education institute?
Mount Allison University.
Oh, Mount Allison University. Sounds
I'm a
very
Mountie.
posh.
I'm a Mountie. There's nothing posh about it.
Hmm.
It's a small undergrad school in Canada that doesn't have a graduate school, but it was lots of fun.
I so did not know you studied in Canada.
I did.
This is wrong. Have we known each other for like 3 years and I did not know this?
Well, there you go.
I feel ashamed of myself. Although you don't know where I studied, so I'll
No, I
forgive you for
didn't.
that. No,
No, I don't.
fair enough. Not as exotic as Canada, but there we go. Alrighty ho. So, hello, folks. Welcome to the Day One Careers weekly Amazon interview preparation session. We have the banner ticker tape going, and we are good to go. So, we will do our little preamble that we do to allow other folks to have time to realize that we are live and obviously rush to come and join us. So, let me start with a little bit of an intro into myself, and then Yevgeny will give you a little intro into himself, and then we will move forward. So, I am an ex Amazon bar raiser and senior leader. I was at Amazon for about 5 years, and in that time, I led marketing operations for Amazon Prime Video across the entirety of Europe, and I did a whole bunch of interviewing and bar raising. Whilst I was doing my bar raising, I started to spot some kind of weird things that candidates were doing, but doing consistently, or should I say repeatedly. Lots of people doing kind of the same weird things, which left me slightly discombobulated. I decided I would ask a candidate or two what motivated them to do said weird thing, and a whole bunch of them pointed me to the same materials on YouTube. I got curious, started digging around, and discovered that there was a bunch of material on YouTube about Amazon interviews, not as much as there is these days. And some of it was quite a load of tosh. Yeah, lovely British terminology there. Um, Either produced by people who had never worked at Amazon or produced by people who had worked at Amazon but in a very narrow focus. And although that guidance wasn't particularly wrong, it was not broadly applicable to every single Amazon interview. So I decided to create my own YouTube channel whilst I was still working at Amazon. Got lots of support from Amazon in terms of promoting that YouTube channel. When it got to the point where I moved on from my Amazon life, I decided I would see if I could turn this YouTube channel into a little bit of a side hustle, if that's the right terminology. So I set up my own business, Amazon Interview Whiz Academy, supporting people with their Amazon interview preparation journey. Cross paths with Yevgeny. We realized we were in competition with each other. He'll tell you a little bit more about that. And we just decided that we would do better working together than working against each other. And so it has proven so. We set up our own little business together. And here we are as Day One Careers, providing an incredible digital course supporting you on your interview preparation, some absolutely amazing AI tools that you're not going to get from anyone else selling Amazon interview preparation courses, coaching that we do, and of course, this fabulous YouTube channel that we are both very, very proud of, along with a massive blog on our website as well, with amazing free tools and resources to help you achieve your dream role in a time where the job market is an absolute poo-poo show. To put not too fine a point on it. So that's me. Let me just quickly pass you to Yevgeny. He'll give you a brief rundown of his history, and we will then get going and explaining to you how the session is going to work today.
Thank you, Gigi. So I too worked at Amazon. I was a category leader for Amazon device accessories in Europe, and I was also a hiring manager. I was not a bar raiser. But my journey into this whole Amazon prep thing was basically like this. And so I wanted to test whether giving candidates who were about to flunk a phone screen a little bit of coaching on their interview skills would actually improve their results, assuming the resume and the professional profile was actually fitting to the job description. So rather than failing them at phone screen one, I would spend maybe 5 to 10 minutes on the call with them, giving them a little bit of coaching, and then passing into phone screen two. And anecdotally, they did better because if you help someone improve with some skill set that's not natural to them, and they take your feedback on board, then I guess they will do a little bit better. So then I in my last 2 months at Amazon, I started coaching, and while I was at Apple, I pretty much built my version of what was the starting point of Day One Careers, completely as a side gig. So similarly to Gigi, I was combining courses, digital courses, and coaching. And then at some point in time, one candidate who we both worked with, suggested that we should get to know each other, which we did. We met up and we thought, you know what? We seem to be the most credible people in the industry. Let's merge our businesses and let's put our thoughts and energy together. And I think in Feb 2022, we relaunched as the current version of Day One Careers, and then built a whole bunch of new and great stuff. And there you go. You have this weekly show where we help answer all your questions relating to behavioral interviews at Amazon.
Awesome. So, a little bit of housekeeping before we get going, then, everybody. In terms of the questions that you're going to ask us, please don't ask us really generic, general questions. Hi, Gigi Evgeny, I've got an interview tomorrow. Any tips? Because, yeah, there's like, I don't know, 20, 30 hours of tips on the YouTube channel. Maybe not that much, but still. Um, there's too many tips for us to be able to answer that question particularly efficiently on this call and still have time to take anyone else's question. So please, if it's a general question, just start with the YouTube channel. There is a playlist on there called Start Here, helpfully enough. So start there. And then if you have further questions from then onwards, you can come back to join us next week or drop a comment in on the YouTube channel and we will try and respond. On the other extreme, please do not ask us too specific questions, i.e., if you have a specific question about a functional aspect of your interview, if you're a software development engineer, if you are a pre construction engineer, if you're a lawyer, if you are a product manager, if you are a software development engineer, I just probably said that one already. If you have a very specific question about a functional aspect of your interview or functional, technical, interchangeable terminology, we're unlikely to be able to answer that. There's definitely thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of job families in Amazon. And there's simply impossible for us or indeed anyone else to be expert enough to be able to know what questions you're going to face from a technical functional point of view for across that spread of 10,000 odd job families. So I'm afraid we will have to decline to answer those questions. But anything in between is probably fair game. And we will let you know if we can't answer something rather than just ignore you. So all you need to do is write your question in the block here on what I think is probably the right-hand side of your screen. There is a character limit on that. So if you're typing away and you discover you've hit the character limit, just put a number 1 at the end and then keep typing. And if you still hit the character limit, number 2. And if you still hit the characteristic, keep on typing in a new block and number 3. And then we'll know to look to jump across the submissions to find the full flow of your answer, your question. I think that's about it, isn't it? Should we just
I
get
think that's it.
started? Okay,
Yeah.
so there are some questions here already, which is good. We will get going. But whilst we get going, please do, if you have any questions, drop them in. We will be here for a maximum of an hour, but it's all dependent on the questions, the number of questions that are asked us. So please don't be embarrassed. Ask any question you like. Worst case scenario, we will simply say we cannot answer that question, and then no great loss. Okay, do you want to pick the first one, Yevgeny?
Look, I'm going to pick the first one, but I'm going to have to bat it off to you
Oh, okay.
because if you read this, so I recently had my loop last week and waiting for a callback. The bar raiser didn't ask me any follow-up questions after my example. Is that a good or bad sign? So my response would that be, I have no idea. It could be a good sign, it could be a bad sign. But we have a former bar raiser here. Do you have any insight that I don't have?
No, my answer would be exactly the same, which is it could be a good sign in the sense of you just covered everything off, and anything that that interviewer would want to know, you already put into your answer, and therefore they had no need to ask you any follow-up questions. On the opposite side of the spectrum, it could be a bad thing because your answer could have been so poor, and this is rare, by the way. Your answer could have been so poor that the interviewer just doesn't know where to go with it. And what they decide to do is just abandon it and move quickly on to the next question in the hope that they can get something more meaty from you then. As I said, that's quite rare. I would suspect the higher probability is the first one where you've done a great job, given them everything they need, no need for follow up questions. All right. Um, let's pick another one then. Neeru. Okay. So unfortunately, this meets the category of don't ask us general questions, but I didn't just want to ignore you, Neeru. So you're asking us to share preparation tips and strategies to crack the 1 hour business phone interview with hiring manager for senior HRBP role. Go look at the YouTube channel. Start with the playlist that says start here, start there, and then move on from there. But all of the tips and tricks and insights that we have to offer you for free are on the YouTube channel. It would take far too long to relay them now. So please do go check out the channel. And then if you have a specific question from that, you can either come back next week or ask a follow-up question on the channel itself. Okay. Do you want to do this one, Yevgeny? Actually, sorry, I picked it for you.
Cool. Okay. So, how many stories should I prepare for each leadership principle for senior account manager role at Amazon Shipping, please? Right. So, the number of leadership principle stories that you need to prepare depends on how many behavioral interviews you're going to have. How many behavioral interviews you're going to have literally depends on how your team wants to run them and what level you're at. From the title of your role, I am figuring out this is a sales role. Sales roles at Amazon are non-technical, unless your hiring team wants to spend some of your time during your loop testing you on some functional stuff, like get you to negotiate or throwing some other sales functional questions or assessments at you. Let's assume that they're not going to do that, right? By the way, ask them if you should expect any functional questions or assessments, but let's assume there are not going to be any, and let's assume it's a level 6 role, which it might be from judging from the title, because you're a senior account manager. So you will most likely have 5 back-to-back interviews, 2 leadership principles per interview, and we would recommend 2 stories per leadership principle. So that goes up to 20 stories, give or take. You can take shortcuts. For example, you can use the same situation and split it into multiple stories, assuming that your behaviors that you're trying to demonstrate are different. Like, for example, you could have a situation that can lend itself to an earn trust story and to a customer obsession story. It's the same kind of macro situation, life situation, but you could chunk in 2 stories. But generally speaking, I would say you need about 20 pieces of content. Any other pieces of wisdom in this one, Gigi?
Sorry, I went on mute to tell my dog to be quiet. No, nothing additional to what you would say there. So let me pick the next one. Let's pop Julie back and pull out Amalpreet. So hi, Gigi and Yevgeny. Thank you for Day One Careers platform. You're very welcome. I got an offer from Amazon in 2 days. Wow. So they got back to you within 2 days. You interviewed for great Pathways Operation Manager internship in Canada. Congratulations. I'm sure
Congrats.
everyone here would like to wish you congratulations, and it's an honor and a privilege to have been able to support you on that journey. That's why we do what we do. I mean, obviously, we want to pay our bills. Let's not pretend that this is completely altruistic, but it is a pleasure to be able to support people achieve some really important key goals for them, and sometimes life changing. Yevgeny received an email from a candidate. Was it a week or 2 ago, Yevgeny? I can't
Yep,
remember
2
the
weeks.
person. Right. Can't remember the person's name. We possibly shouldn't quote their name anyway. But suffice to say that they had been out of work for a while. Was it Yevgeny? And they
Six
were in.
months. 6 months unemployed. Yeah.
Right, and they were in real financial trouble. And working with Yevgeny, and I think with using our digital course, they managed to get themselves not only hired at Amazon, but also managed to double the salary that they were on before they'd been let go. So Yevgeny loves those. He sent me a message saying, "Oh, this is so exciting!" And it was very exciting. So we are very, very lucky to be able to have a positive impact on people's lives and pay our bills. And we don't underestimate how rare that is, I guess, to be able to do that in your working life. So congratulations.
Well done.
Right. So I think you covered this question a second ago. So let's
It's literally
just,
the same question, just different
yeah,
math.
exactly. Right. So same answer to what Yevgeny gave a minute ago. Okay. So Japnit, would there be a deep dive on written assignments during the loop? Okay, good question. So in theory, the either the bar raiser or the hiring manager could potentially ask you to talk them through your writing assessment. And quite often, recruiters will tell candidates that this is going to happen. I can probably count on one hand how many times that has actually happened in the real world. So what I would say to you is be prepared to be able to talk about your written assignment, but one would assume that you are capable of talking about your written assignment because you've written it yourself. But I think in reality, it's probably unlikely that anyone's going to actually ask you to do that. The whole point of the written assignment is about testing the quality of your writing. So if you want to use that story in your actual interview, that's absolutely fine. So you may end up talking about it anyway. But I think the odds, statistically speaking, are against anybody proactively asking you to talk about it in the context of it being your written assignment. Do you want to pick the next one?
Yep. Okay, so here's a question from Awais. I recently applied for a brand specialist role in the UK, and I have one question, one concern. Question: is there any way to determine if a job is not open to international candidates? Look, um, the only way to tell if the job is not open to international candidates is if they somehow mention it in the job descriptions, and in some cases they might, some cases they may not. So just looking at a representative brand specialist job ad, for example. In the US, there's absolutely nothing to say that it's open or not open for relocation. That being said, from experience, I would say that jobs at level 5 and below, only and a handful of them will be open for relocation, and only in a handful of locations. Right. At the end of the day, many different inputs are going into deciding whether the hiring manager is able or willing to relocate people and support international applications. It would be quite unusual to see brand specialist roles being open to those, from my experience. Gigi might disagree. Would just say it's fair that it's usually L6 and onwards that you'd see relocation packages being offered.
Yeah, I've never seen a brand specialist role offered for relocation packages. If you're going to fund yourself to relocate, then that's fine. So that would be open to an international candidate, but they just simply wouldn't be paying any relocation costs. But I've never seen a brand specialist role, which is like the most entry level role you can get in retail, being offered a relocation. It doesn't make any sense in the
No.
nicest possible way. They're very, very capable of getting brand specialists from the UK who are in the UK. It doesn't make any sense to pay for expertise to bring in internationally.
Gotcha. And then there's the concern. After applying, I lost access to my email account because it was hacked. So I won't be able to respond if contacted. Should I reapply using a different email, or would that conflict with any Amazon's policy? Right. So this is a tough one. If you know who your recruiter is on that role, I would just get in touch with them by LinkedIn and explain the situation. That's
I
what I
doubt
would do.
I doubt they would know who the recruiter was. That's volume hiring at the bottom end. It'll be like a group email inbox. So I would suggest reapplying. And what will happen is the ATS will match you and use your most recent details for your contact details.
That's it. There you go.
Okay, I will pick the next one. Okay, here we go. Yiravali. Apologies if I have mispronounced that, which I'm sure I have. Did you know anyone who declined an offer but interested right after, within 6 months, got a green light interview at AWS? And do they prefer who received an offer earlier for other roles? Okay, so the question is, um, I'm not going to say, I don't think we can answer, do we know anyone specifically? Because that's kind of not the point here. So you're asking us our understanding of the policy for people who have declined offers and then potentially being able to be offered 6 months later. And does it exist as a possibility? So, yes, if you decline an offer, you are nonetheless what Yevgeny and I call pre-qualified. I don't think Amazon uses that terminology, but you are pre-qualified for a role at that level, at that specific job family for the next 6 months. And you can reapply for a role at that level in that job family within 6 months. The hiring manager then has the option to take you through a reduced interview process. The biggest reduction they can make is literally just to have one interview with you, which is what this green light refers to. Equally, if they don't want to do that, they are still at liberty to shorten the process by putting you through a mini loop. A mini loop being, instead of going through round one and then a full loop, which is potentially 5 people large, they can just call you in for maybe a 3 people mini loop. Do we know anyone who has done that? Yes, I know a few candidates. Were they AWS specific? I'm not sure, if I'm honest with you. I can't remember specifically. But yes, it is a real scenario that does actually turn into real jobs eventually. Whether those people only went through green lights or whether they went through mini loops, honestly, I can't remember, if I'm honest with you. Do they prefer people who've received an offer earlier for other roles? Of course. Wouldn't you, if someone's already proven themselves to be able to get an offer from Amazon and you were a hiring manager and you wanted to hire someone and put in as little effort as possible to hire them, wouldn't you pick someone who someone else has already said could get it, should be allowed into Amazon? Of course you would. So yes, you would be top of the food chain as far as being a potential candidate for people to consider. Anything to add, Yevgeny?
No, it's super extensive. Like I don't think I'd be able to answer it as extensively.
Then you can pick the next one.
Okay, so here's one from Carly, I think. Um, right. What is the best way to make the star story clear and structured? Should I clearly state the situation was, the task was? Thank you. So, like, the way that I guide everyone, if you are just using the standard star framework, and the reason why I'm saying that is because we teach an improved version of a storytelling framework in our paid courses. But if you're just relying on star, um, whether you're actually vocalizing the subheadings of the star or not, you know, it only it's only beneficial to the story if it is beneficial to you to keep structured.
Mhm.
It's not a problem if you do. It's not a problem if you don't. We always say to candidates, if it serves as crutches to you, then absolutely do it, because at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you are clear, that you are indeed structured, and it's great that you're concerned about being structured. It helps, and that your interviewer can understand you. And if using subheadings helps you, do it. That's all I can say. Anything to add?
Nope, it's exactly what I would say. Okay, let's pick this one. Oh, okay. Oh, Liz. Okay, thank God for that. I
Why?
was
Do you want me,
like,
do you want me to pronounce this for you?
go on.
Елизавета Щепетильникова.
Thank you.
You're
I'm,
welcome.
I'll go for Liz, if that's okay. Hey, Liz. Right, for an L6 position, non-tech, at the loop, would you suggest the stories match the scale of the role or not critical? Okay. Senior program manager runs 200 plus programs for 40K associates, L&D. Okay. Yes, I think is the broad answer to your question. Um, one of the one of the main reasons in my experience as a bar raiser where we would be not inclined to hire a candidate that's made it all the way through to loop is the fact that the stories that they have shared do not reflect the scope and complexity of the role that we are interviewing them for. So, this is why Yevgeny and I offer the advice to candidates to try and restrict their stories to work that they have done in the last 5 odd years. Because once you start going further back than that, with the exception of if you have a very long career, like 20, 25 years, it's possible that for 5 years you're probably in the same level role that you were 5 years before. But with the exception of that type of scenario, in most cases, if you go back 5 years, you're going to be operating at a level that is more junior than the level that you're applying for. And therefore, the stories are at risk of not having the scope and complexity of the work that they're looking for you to do now. So the simple answer is yes, and that is why. Now, that's not to say that you cannot go back further than that. But if you do, our recommendation is that it needs to be a really strong, really impressive story within the context of how far back you've had to go. So if you go back 10 years and you're telling a story that actually shows you punching way, way, way above your weight in the context of you being in a very junior position, that's grand. If you tell a story from 10 years ago, which is pretty much an acceptable story for someone working at that level 10 years ago, not really going to do you very much favors. So, in short, Liz, yes, do everything you can to have your stories match the scope and complexity of the role that you are interviewing for.
That's fair. That's
Hmm.
fair.
You want to pick the next one?
Yep. Okay. More from Nero. How to structure answers. For example, if the LPs have backbone, disagree, and commit, can you give an example of sample story in star format using this LP? Also, what should be the duration for each answer? Look, we're not going to be giving examples of star stories. We do offer some skeleton stories as examples on our blog, but I mean the internet's full of examples on how you can structure a story in a star format. The one thing that I would recommend that for you to keep in mind, and it's something that Amazon's very particular about, is you need to be able to demonstrate impact in your stories. So when it comes to sharing results, just make sure that you're sharing results that are impactful, show tangible value that you've added to whatever it is, wherever it is that you were working. And it needs to be something that's not yourself, like an entity that's other than yourself. Your team is fine, your business, your department, and use numbers if you can. What numbers? Not necessarily dollar value, or if you do know the dollar value of your impact, that's probably the best, but it's not the only KPI that you can use. Just use whatever is relevant to your function. And then what should be the duration for each onsum? So that depends on your seniority, and that's our guidance. The official guidance from Amazon, which you can pick up on their websites, is don't be longer than 4 minutes. And for them, something that's already 4 minutes is detailed enough. Our guidance is slightly different. We recommend that if you're applying for, let's say, a level 4, then your story is something like 4 or 5 minutes. If it's L5, it's 5 to 6. If it's 6, it's 6 to 7, and you get the point. So you kind of increase the length of your story as the level of the role increases. The reason why we make this recommendation is because the 4 minute official recommendation in terms of limit, that assumes that you have an interviewer who will follow up and drill down and extract all of those different details from you, to understand how you approached problem solving. Um, there's plenty of amazing interviewers at Amazon, but not everyone is naturally a great interviewer. And so our strategy of slightly oversharing in terms of the details in your opening story, it helps you mitigate the risk that you might encounter an interviewer who, if they don't get enough details from you from your opener, they're just not going to follow up and they'll fail you. So there you go. Anything you'd add, Gigi?
No, I guess the one thing, maybe just to add, is that you can always do a quick check on whether you are going to the right level of detail for that particular interviewer, because different interviewers have different preferences. I love tons of detail. I'm super happy just to sit there and listen. I don't really need to participate. I'm just happy to absorb. Other interviewers like the sound of their own voice more than I like the sound of my voice, and they like candidates to give relatively high levels so they can guide the conversation and pull out the things that they want. So, one thing that you can do is when you are going through your first answer with an interviewer for the first time, get to maybe the first kind of point of your action section and just stop and say to your interviewer, can I just check? Am I giving you the right level of detail? Do you need more? Do you need less? And then they can guide you. If they say less, then you need to be able to learn to summarize up. So there is a certain skill in the interview process that means that not only will you kind of go prepared with stories and key points you want to make, you also need to be able to adapt to consolidating up that story and giving a little less detail so that the interviewer then has the structure that they prefer. Okie dokie. So, Marco, you had a phone interview 2 weeks ago. It's probably the hardest interview you've ever had. Yeah, that's not a surprise, Marco. I think most people would probably say that. The questions are very specific. Yes, they are. And if anyone would like, we've got some freebies for you at the end, folks. Actually, I probably should have said that at the beginning. And we have an amazing question bank. It isn't the actual Amazon interview question bank. It's what we call plausible Amazon interview questions we have created ourselves based on our deep, deep understanding of the leadership principles and how Amazon interviewers tend to phrase questions. So Marco is absolutely right. The questions are very specific. You didn't move forward. Can I find out why? Okay, probably not, Marco. Amazon does have a firm policy around not providing detailed feedback to candidates. In terms of why that is, because I'm sure you will all be sitting there going, why? Why that is, I have not ever read an official policy document on this, but there is internal law about it, and internal law tends to be quite accurate. Where there's rumor, there's usually truth. So that law falls into two parts. The first part is Amazon is protecting itself from litigation. It is possible that a recruiter or a interviewer might say something and slightly misrepresent something or slightly misarticulate something, or a candidate might slightly misinterpret something, and then suddenly, particularly in the US, because sorry folks, you are the most litigious country on the planet, lead to some kind of litigation. And there is rumor that that had happened in the past. So that's one reason they don't want to do that. And the second reason is that it protects the interviewer. As an interviewer, you have to feel completely comfortable sharing anything that you need to share with the debriefed group from the actual interview process. If you suspect that what you say might find its way back to the candidate, and quite often it's quite easy to kind of connect the dots and work out which interviewer said that about you, then you're going to worry. We're all very accessible on social media these days. You're going to worry that that's going to come back and bite you in the ass. So, in order to protect its interviewers and make sure that they're as comfortable as possible in being open and honest about their experience, again, that's another reason why law says they don't provide feedback. I hope that helps. Right, so we are just beyond the 30-minute mark. So, should we do our commercial break per se? It's not a commercial break, folks. Don't worry about it. No one's going to be sending you Pepsi or anything like that. Well, now I wonder whether I'm going to get done for copyright. So, we have a very brief favor to ask all of you. As you can clearly see, we put the most enormous amount of effort into this YouTube channel. And also, if you head over to our blog, you'll see a massive amount of content there. All of this free. The freebies we're going to give you at the end. We put a massive amount of effort into this whole experience for you. We don't generally ask for anything in return because all these things are free, but there is one tiny, tiny, teeny thing that we would like you to do for us. And that is, please do, whenever you watch a piece of our content, whenever you come to one of our lives, give the content a thumbs up, a like, whichever you want to call it. And ideally, give us a little shout out and a comment as well. What that does is it basically tells the YouTube algorithm two things. First, that it has successfully surfaced the right piece of content to the right person who's interested in that content. And secondly, that that person enjoys that content and thinks it's good. That then boosts that content in the algorithm above some of the other content that's on YouTube, which in some cases is very questionable. So, in the best interest of the other people like you who are out there looking for really useful and accurate content, please do, whenever you look at a piece of our content, give it a thumbs up and or put a little comment underneath it. And to give you folks some practice, I'm going to ask you to do that now for this stream. Just so that you know, I can see how many likes we have here on my second screen. So I will know of the entire population, which I also have a count of, how many of you actually like it. So if you don't want me to cry, push the like button. We're going to have a little musical interlude to give you an opportunity to do that. So let's just go there and we'll try this one. It's pretty short, it's only about 10 seconds. We haven't done this one for a while, Evgeny, so I thought I'd try this one. And whilst we play that to you, please do like the stream. Like the stream. Like the stream. Like the stream. There we go. Short, sweet, and painless. Although I just realized there's a groin shot in there. Was that groin shot really necessary? It's like a Michael Jackson video.
It's like a disco, 1970s sort of disco, John Travolta style.
Yeah, it's the groin shot just seems a bit, I don't know, gratuitous to me. But there we go. I'm British. Most things are gratuitous.
Mm.
Right. Do you want
Right.
to pick the next one?
Yeah. Okay. So, due to medical reasons, I had to postpone the HR call for a position in Amazon Robotics. A few days ago, another recruiter reached to me for a role. I'm highly interested. Can I interview you for both roles? Yes. Just tell the recruiters you're doing that, and then see what happens. You might have teams sort of fighting for you, and trying to sell you the role if you're successful in both interviews or not. So, but don't try to hide it from your recruiter. Just let them know, and yeah, and see how you go. Good luck. Anything you'd add, Gigi?
No, nothing I'd add. It's grand. Okay, so Niru again. Is it okay to say which leadership principle I demonstrated in each story I talk about in my interview, or the interviewer will figure it out on their own? Yeah, don't name drop leadership principles. Don't ever name drop leadership principles. Two reasons. Number one, you might have identified the leadership principle incorrectly from the question. And if you start dropping the name of that leadership principle and that's not the leadership principle that they were actually looking to get insight on, that just does not look very good for you. The other thing is name dropping a leadership principle is not evidence that you actually demonstrated that leadership principle. If you are providing insight that shows your behaviors, that will be enough for the interviewer to identify the leadership principle. It's actually a little bit insulting, at least I find it so. Maybe I'm overly sensitive, Yevgeny. I find it a little bit insulting when a candidate thinks they need to tell me what the leadership principle is that they're demonstrating. I understand the behaviors and what leadership principles they align to probably better than you do because I'm an Amazonian and you're not. So my advice is never name drop the leadership principles. Focus on the behaviors, make sure you answer the question, and then your interviewer can do all of the rest of it. My personal opinion. Would you say anything different, Yevgeny?
No, I agree. I mean, you trying to pass a judgment on what you've done in terms of leadership principles. It's a claim. Um, you need to supply evidence and let them work out what it is. So, right. Let me pick the next one. This one from UC. So I messed up one of the technical questions in one of my L6 loop interviews. All the LP questions went well. What are the chances that I get rejected because of this one question went badly? I have no idea. I don't think anyone does. By the way, just between you and I, well, no one's listening. There's actually no way to know for sure which ones you did well on and which ones you messed up on until they actually give you feedback. And when they give you feedback, in most cases, they're not going to tell you where you went wrong and where and what you messed up.
Well, I suppose if it's a technical question, it might be a little bit more obvious to Yossi, because I suppose there are right technical ways of doing things and wrong technical ways of doing things.
True. That being said, his confidence on the fact that the LP ones went well, again,
Oh, I see. Yeah, I take your point. Yeah.
poker-faced Amazonians. It's all
Yeah.
that.
Fair point.
So
Fair point.
all I would say is, look, you see, one way or the other. There's no way to know, right? Now, in reality, if, for example, something in an interview did not go well, let's say it's not your opinion, let's say it's an actual reality, and then there's a debrief and then there's a discussion. If there are some mitigating factors that some other people can share that mitigate for the fact that something didn't go well in that particular interview, it is still possible to get an offer. Also, it's possible to not get an offer, because if, let's say, for a hiring manager or the bar raiser that was a deal breaker, then then it doesn't work. So it's just a long way to tell you just chill until you actually get a decision. And as ever, it's 50-50 until you hear from them. That's all I would say.
Okay. So the next one, Asher, I'm not going to pull it out of the question, but essentially you've asked exactly the same question as Yussi did, which is there's no way to know. So always be optimistic. You ask, can I be optimistic? Always be optimistic, because you don't know until you don't know. So you may as well, you don't know until you know. So you may as well be optimistic. Okay, let's just pull this one up. Rupam, I haven't read it yet, so I don't know what this is. Part one. Hi, I failed an interview for an ops role for Prime UK. When asked hiring manager for the feedback, got a very casual answer with regards to data-driven details were missing. Okay. Oh, right, hang on. My concern understanding Amazon is high on data-driven process, but to have a thorough experience related to similar requirement is not always viable. In that case, how should I approach the next interview? Okay, I'm not sure I entirely understand the question. Um, but at a high level, I think what they're telling you is you did not put enough information in your narrative that is data specific. So I'm reading between the lines and saying your results probably didn't have any very clear impact data in it, moving the dial from A to B. When you set up the situation, you possibly didn't include data in that, i.e., why the hell would anyone care that this situation exists or this opportunity exists? Um, I don't think this feedback, personally, I don't think this feedback is telling you specifically that you have to come up with stories that are exactly equivalent to the stories or the experiences that you would have in that particular role. I think what they're telling you is they didn't really understand the significance of your impact and what you contributed. And without that, Yevgeny mentioned that earlier on in this session, there's no way to know whether you're a worthwhile candidate to bring into the business, because you can demonstrate a whole bunch of behaviors, but if you don't actually move the dial for the company, then what value are you going to add at Amazon if you weren't able to add value at a previous company? If I've misunderstood your question and there is something else in it, please do drop another one in the box below, but I think hopefully that covers the question.
It was my understanding of the question as well.
Oh, there's a quick one from Renat there. Will I just quickly cover that one off?
Yeah, sure.
Quick one. Okay, Renat, did we accidentally miss it? I'm not sure, but on what level of SDE are system design questions asked? Okay, so Renat, this falls into the category that you may not have been here when I opened up the session. This is a very specific functional question. There are tens of thousands of job families in Amazon, and neither Yevgeny or I, or indeed any other human being, can be a subject matter expert on every single one of those. So I'm afraid I cannot answer that question for you. There is a video on the Day One Careers YouTube channel that is a deep dive into what to expect as a software development engineer from an interview point of view. So please go check that out, and you may find some of the answers to that question there. Okay, do you want to pick the next one, Yevgeny?
Yeah. Okay, so the next one will be Praneeth. For the phone interview, will there be a tell me what you know about Amazon or Amazon business? If that's the division I'm applying for after, tell me about yourself and why Amazon. There's no way for us to know, unfortunately, Praneeth, because phone screens are a bit of a catch-all interview format, and it's up to the interviewer to literally throw anything they want at you. If for that particular interviewer, it is important for them to see what you know about Amazon, that they may ask you. Um, in our experience and experience of our candidates, the most popular, again, and when I say most popular, probably 6 cases out of 10, it goes something along the lines of, why do you want to work here? Then indeed tell me about yourself, or walk me through your resume, and then maybe one or two leadership principles questions. And then if it's a technical role, then something technical. Tell me about what you know about Amazon and this business in this particular rendition. Um, in my experience, it hasn't been that frequent. I can't recall a time when this was being asked. That being said, in my interview internally, when I was transferring teams, I was asked, you know, how would you? So I was asked some hypotheticals, like, how would you price a cover for a Kindle e-reader, for example? And that was a question that was partly testing for my cursory, superficial knowledge or impressions of the category, and partly for how my brain works as a potential category leader, which shows you the breadth of what they can throw at you. So if they want to, they'll ask you those questions. If they don't, they won't. Sorry, I know you wanted something more precise, but I don't think we can do it.
Yeah, quite right. Okay, so this one for the hiring manager interview, do we have to prepare two stories? This is for a non-tech role in finance. So, um, no, you do not just prepare two stories because there's a massive risk if you just do two stories because there's 16 leadership principles and they could easily ask you a question that doesn't relate to those two stories. So the best thing to do is speak to your recruiter and ask your recruiter what the most important leadership principles are for the role that you're applying for. And then you can focus your preparation on those leadership principles. Our advice is to prepare two stories for each leadership principle. Ideally, what you want to be able to do in a first phone screen is not have to prepare for all 16. So you can either ask your recruiter or you can go onto our YouTube channel and watch a little bit of a sample of how I go about deconstructing job descriptions to try and identify what I think are the most important leadership principles. Or if you don't feel comfortable or confident doing that, I do provide a service that you can pay me for, and I will do that deconstruction for your job description myself. Obviously, one of the really annoying things, if I'm honest with you, about kind of the early rounds is you have to massively over prepare because if you don't know exactly what you're going to be asked, you have to be prepared for anything. And it does feel like massively outsized preparation to then go into one interview and maybe only be asked one or two questions and then get rejected. And I do see, particularly on the YouTube channel, a whole bunch of people bitching, if I'm honest with you, about how hard they work to prepare and then to get rejected after the first round. Yes, it sucks, but that's the reality of the process. That everybody knows that's what they're going into when they agree to take on the Amazon interview process and be part of it. So you have to just accept that you will probably be outsizing the amount of preparation you do relative to the amount of questions and what you actually need to demonstrate when you're in the interview itself. And if you don't pass that round, okay, but you've done an amazing amount of preparation and you're now way ahead of the curve for the next interview that you apply for in another organization because pretty much the leadership values that Amazon has are in some flavor or form reflected in a large number of other corporate organizations. So to summarize it up, check with your recruiter if they can give you some guidance to narrow down the number of leadership principles. If they can't, go to the YouTube channel and see if you can work it out yourself. If you can't do that, come to me, pay me, and I will do it for you. But accept the fact that you will over prepare for your first interview. Would you add anything, Yevgeny?
No, no, all very, very fair. Right, there's a bit of a multi-parter here from a ways.
Okay.
So I've applied for several highly relevant roles at Amazon, even with strong references, but I've been rejected at the very first stage. My resume is meticulously tailored. My referees are highly confident in my fit for these roles. Could this be due to my status as an international candidate? And there's a follow up to this particular one. Do ATS systems filter out international applicants? I would greatly appreciate your insights and guidance on this. Right. So, yes, it can be due to you being an international candidate because and again, I don't know what roles you're applying for, but if you're applying for entry level 4 brand specialist type roles, then I think it's very likely that you will struggle to get traction with your profile for because you require relocation, and I think it's international relocation, right? Now, uh, the sticking point could be not only just the relocation package in itself, but also the fact that you need sponsorship to work in whichever location that you're applying to. Like I know, again, from my experience, if this was an L6 role and the hiring manager said, right, we will offer relocation packages, then it's usually not a problem. It's a bit of a logistical annoyance because you have to wait for the candidate a bit longer if you're a hiring manager. But that if your profile is great, then typically it's not a problem. So yes, in terms of ATS, so Amazon's ATS, I actually um if you fill out that you need sponsorship for this role, I actually don't know. You might be screened out automatically. The recruiter might screen you out if you have a referral, in which case your application goes into the hiring manager queue. I actually don't know. Maybe it is filtered out and it doesn't get into the hiring manager queue because you've ticked the wrong box. So I actually don't know. Do you know, Gigi, if it automatically filters out those who need sponsorship if you've posted the job and you're saying that you're not offering relocation?
So I haven't seen the knockout questions section of the ATS of hire, so I can't speak definitively. All I can
Mm.
say is hypothetically, there are knockout questions that they can build into the ATS. And if you incorrectly answer that knockout question, or you answer in such a way that knocks you out, that is automatically done by the ATS. Now, whether there is a specific or I'm going to say international because that's a nothing word because it depends on where where you are in the world as to what international means. But if it's a role in the UK, if it might be possible to put into the ATS, if candidate's named address is not UK, do not accept. I'm going to hypothetically say that's probably possible, but whether they actually do that is don't know.
We don't
And
we
it
don't
would
know.
it would change also for different roles. Different recruiters use the ATS in different ways anyway. Some would prefer to eyeball, some use some of the knockout questions if they're particularly working on scale projects where they've got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of applicants, then they use the ATS knockout questions more heavily than someone that's working on a custom role and has far less in the way of volume of applications.
What I would say though, Wace, is that you should definitely. My advice would be if you want to play the long game, I would get a job somewhere in the region that's closer to you. And then once you've spent some time, maybe 2, 3 years working in that role, then try getting yourself relocated. Maybe even see if you can get yourself a promotion in one of the regions that are closer to you. Um, Pound for pound, typically, and this is purely in my experience, what I've seen is that in places outside of Western Europe and the United States, promotions might be just a tiny bit quicker. So you might be just a tiny bit luckier there to get to a level where you can get where you can compete for roles that have relocation packages. The other thing that I might suggest is that have a look at roles that are posted in Luxembourg specifically, and see if you will get more traction there. There's no guarantees, but I know that you might want to relocate to the UK for various different reasons. But again, if you want to play a long game, um, check out Luxembourg, check out locations closer to you. Again, I have no idea where you are in the world, but um, a long game might actually work better for you because I've seen plenty of folks coming from all around the world where they joined Amazon in their location wherever they were, and then they've clocked some hours, they've clocked some years, they've got some deliverables, earned some stripes, and then when they are relocating internally, it's a completely different ballgame. So anyway, good luck. I hope something will work out for you.
Cool. So I'll do a couple just in quick succession because they're easy questions and we are kind of running out of time now. So, what maximum time interval can I give for a call first interview? Is 1 week okay? Yeah, I think 1 week is fine. You could probably even stretch it to 1.5 weeks if you want to make sure that you have enough time to really fully prepare. But yes, I would say that's absolutely fine. Now, obviously, there's no way of telling. And because of the Amazon first past the post process, it is possible that you're being invited to a first round interview at the same time as someone else is at final loop. So there's no guarantees. But in terms of kind of the average, most candidates are probably looking at 1 week in terms of from invitation to first interview on average anyway. Next one, I've completed my Amazon interview for an SDE2. How many days would it take to get a response? It depends whether it is a early round or a loop. So for early rounds, so round one or round two, the SLA is 2 working days. If you're coming off loop, the SLA is 5 working days. Okay, and then I'll do the next one and then I'll pass to you. So, always again, is the hiring manager always in the phone interview? How would I know if the interview is the hiring manager? No, the hiring manager doesn't always do the phone interview, particularly if it's only a first round going straight to loop in the process that that team has particularly chosen. How would you know if the interviewer is the hiring manager? Ask the recruiter, or hopefully the interviewer will introduce themselves and their role at Amazon before you get into the interview. Would you like to pick the next one, Yevgeny?
Yes, I'm just going to skip a couple of repetitive ones that we've
Mm-hmm.
answered mostly. So this one is from Carlos. Is there a referral process and system at Amazon? Yes. So in order to be referred for a role at Amazon, first things first, get someone who you know at Amazon to internally apply you to the role. Meaning, don't apply for a role at Amazon and then ask someone to refer you, because that referral will not work. Ask them to send them your CV resume, and then ask them to internally apply you for that role. And make sure you know that person really well, because there are two types of referrals at Amazon. There's like um, a, a referral light and a full referral. Referral light is actually I think it might have been called a network referral. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. There's one referral for someone who essentially just hit me up on LinkedIn and asked me to can I get referred to Amazon. It's a referral light. It literally doesn't do much. And then there's the one where the person really knows you and can vouch for you. Now that one will apply you for the role and put your profile into the review queue straight for the hiring manager. So it kind of advances your profile one step further into the review queue, straight into the hiring manager. So you need to make sure that you know someone at Amazon. They apply you first. Don't apply yourself, and then obviously you need to vouch for you and click that option. That is the full referral. Good luck.
Cool. I'm going to pick, I'll quickly jump through a couple and then answer one in full. And then I think there's one more and then we're at the end anyway. So Harsh has a question. You wrote a follow-up message today to the recruiter. It's been more than 5 days, no result yet. Okay, so just a bit of a qualifier, Harsh. It's 5 working days, not 5 days. And given today's Monday, then potentially you might need to discount 2 days from your calculation. If it is 5 working days, sometimes it happens. It is an SLA, service level agreement, that they try and achieve, but sometimes they fail. But it's the right thing to do to just send a follow-up mail. And if you still haven't heard a couple of days from now, then send another polite follow-up mail, so on and so forth. Okay, so Octavio, I failed 3 different phone screens with different roles. You're an infernal candidate. That's a that's a fabulous typo. I love that. I think that's my favorite typo for such a long time. You're an internal
I'm
candidate.
stealing that one.
What tips I could use at this stage? I have another one in 2 weeks' time. Right, Octavia, if you're an internal candidate, you are entitled to get feedback from the people you interview from. It's a very different story internally than externally. So I don't know if you've actually asked for direct feedback from your interviewers where you failed the phone screen, but if you haven't, go and do that because you are absolutely entitled to full on detailed feedback from your interviewers. We cannot give you any specific tips because we have not interviewed with you. If you want to come and do some mock interviews with us, that's fine. We're very happy to do that with you and provide you our feedback. But you are entitled to detailed feedback from your colleagues. So tap into that resource.
Why is he doing phone screens?
Well, I suppose if you think about
Coffee
it,
chat. It's
it's
the
yeah, yeah, it's a
same functionality.
initial interview. Yeah. So you don't always go straight through to loop. It's got to start with, do I even, as a hiring manager, do I want to waste my time and everyone else's time on my team interviewing you at a internal loop? So
Okay.
I think that's probably what he's describing.
Okay, cool. Right. There's one from UC. I mean, they posted the same role in the same location for the job I interviewed for on the day of my loop. Does it imply I've been rejected? No, no, it doesn't. There's a million and a half things that are happening inside Amazon's ATS. That ATS is piped out into Amazon Jobs, into LinkedIn via their APIs, and then it might trigger relisting of the job, changing of the job ID. Honestly, again, you see, until you hear, it's always 50-50. So just don't psych yourself about it. You'll just waste energy and sleep. Don't do it.
And particularly because there's no way they would have had the debrief. Right? If it's on the day of your loop, that your debrief hasn't happened yet. So no one's
No,
made a decision about you one way or another. So it's absolutely categorically has no connection
it's a
whatsoever
technical.
to
It's a
you.
technical.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So let's pick this last one and then I think we can move to the freebies. So is there a chance to negotiate the salary after the interview to align with my expectations? Oh, I'm sorry. My ear piercings are really sore. Um, because they offered very less before the interview. Still, I'm following the interviewer for experience. Okay. So, of course, there is well, no, of course, entry level roles, there like graduate roles, there is no room for negotiation. There's no reason to pay someone with no experience more than someone else with no experience. But once you get beyond grad roles, yes, there is an opportunity to negotiate. But if you're telling us that the baseline offer they were making or a stat telling you was within the range before the interview is a lot less than what you're willing to accept, then it's extremely unlikely that they will level up to what it is you're looking for. The salary ranges exist for a very specific reason, and the probability of anyone going outside those salary ranges is next to zero. So if you're doing the interview for the experience, that's great. But from what you've just described there, I think it's very unlikely, even if they made you an offer, that they'll come near to what you're expecting. Okay. Oh, and there's well, this is a nice one. I'm going to just pick this one quickly and then we will close up. So, Yussi, is there somewhere you can donate to support our cause? Yes, there is. There's actually a button on the YouTube channel where you are able to make a little donation to our little fund here on YouTube. So I can't remember what it's called. There's a special name for the button. Hang on a second. I'll just go onto YouTube. Do you know what it's called, Yevgeny? I can't remember what they call the button.
I honestly, because we're not really monetizing through um, YouTube ads or subscriptions or any of that stuff. I have no idea.
All right, hang on. I'll found it now. Okay. So what you can do, you see, is when you go on one of the videos, on the far right-hand side, just underneath the video, is three little dots. If you clicked on those three little dots, a drop down appears, and there's a little heart with a dollar sign in the middle of it called thanks. So we would very much appreciate a little donation, and we are very, very grateful for anything you have to offer us. Thank you. That's really kind. Right, so we are now done. My dinner is ready and I'm absolutely starving. So why don't we give you the best freebies? There's no doubt about it. These are the best freebies that are available on YouTube or anywhere for getting hired at Amazon. So if you go to this URL here, at the end of that URL, there is three things that are incredible. The first is that list of Amazon plausible interview questions that you can use to practice in your preparation for your interview. There is a little taster course of our larger paid course that Evgeny referred to earlier. That taster course is focused on customer obsession. What essentially it does is it demonstrates to you the learning model that we use to help people understand what the leadership principles actually mean and how you can identify stories from your career past that align to those leadership principles, and then how you can build out very specific stories. We tell you pretty much what the interviewer is looking for in customer obsession, as we do for all of the other leadership principles in our paid course. That's there as a freebie for you. Pretty much everyone's going to get tested on customer obsession, which is why we provide that one for free. And the last thing is, if you take out any of those two freebies, it will give you access to our Heartbeat community, where there are 4,000, 5,000 people who are part of that community. Some have applied for Amazon in the past, others are currently applying for Amazon. And you can buddy up with people, do mock interviews between yourself and other people who are applying at the same time as you. We also have an AI chatbot on that channel called Andy, funnily enough. And Andy is basically trained on all of the content of the YouTube channel. So if you want to ask Andy a question and you don't want to have to trawl through all of my beautifully crafted videos on the YouTube channel, Andy will give you the answer without having to go to the YouTube channel. So built by our wonderful Yevgeny here, and is a little bit of a shortcut for you if you have answers that you want questions to. And I think that's it. Did I miss anything, Yevgeny? Nope. Okay.
No, not at
So
all good.
oh, and thank you, Yossi, for that donation. We really appreciate that. So $20, oh, £20, I think it is. So that's very, very kind. Appreciate that very, very much. Thank you. Folks, we will see you next week. For those of you who have interviews coming up, fingers very tightly crossed for you. Again, if you are watching any of our content on the YouTube channel, please just spend a fraction of a second giving it a little thumbs up in return for the effort that we put in, and we would be super grateful. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for all of the great questions that you asked, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Take care.
Take care, guys. Good luck with the
Bye.
interview.
Take care.
Bye.